What is up, my people? It's your single player hero, single for short. And today we are taking a look at episode 8 of Wandavision, the next to last episode. I know it's crazy to think that this crazy ride is almost over, but sadly it is. I've had a lot of fun putting out all these reviews for all these episodes. It's something I've always wanted to do with a series, and I'm so glad that this series ended up being what it has become, because honestly it was up in the air. No one really knew what could be of it. It could have been a complete flop, it could have been, but gladly it's turned out to be something amazing, and I'm so glad it's the one series that I finally ended up making a series of YouTube videos reviewing episode by episode. It's been a lot of fun, and I hope you guys have enjoyed the videos that I've been putting out. Make sure to leave a like, subscribe for more videos, and leave a comment letting me know what you thought about this episode and what you think is going to happen next week in the season finale, the last episode essentially. We're gonna try to keep this one short. I think all of my videos have gotten longer and longer since the beginning of the series, and I think even like the last couple of episodes, last videos that I've put out have been longer than the episodes themselves. But so we're gonna try to keep this one short. It's gonna be a lot easier, seeing as this episode was very centered and focused on a single subject, right? And that is Wanda. This episode is Wanda's story. This episode, man, it hits so hard. This episode, what is exactly is the thread that we were missing, the one thing that just connected everything together and just makes everything that we've seen up to this point make sense. Getting to the gist of it, it basically comes down to a kind of a walk down memory lane for Wanda, right? Reliving moments of her life that defined her. They show her as a small, fun-loving child in that moment when her parents are taken from her and first traumas experienced. Again, they show her later down the line volunteering herself to these experiments that Hydra were doing with the Mind Stone that they had. They show us her again after experiencing her other great loss, losing her brother, the moment when she was most vulnerable, and at the same time, by experiencing that, she was able to allow herself to be open, to be able to make a new connection and spark a new love in the Vision. And then they show us her after the events of Endgame, having to deal with the repercussions of having lost Vision in the battle, and how that directly led to the creation of the Hex and the start of the series as a whole. As we're being taken through all these moments, we're seeing Wanda at different stages of her life, and it's beautiful. That's all I can really say what it comes down to. This episode is absolutely, by far, beautiful. It's art. Everything comes together flawlessly in a way to be able to deliver this message, this idea of who Wanda is and what has led to the moment of the creation of the Hex. Their performances, the music, the settings, everything just came together perfectly how it needed to be in order to deliver this story and deliver this message. And if creating an episode where we've established a more deeper connection to the main character being Wanda wasn't enough, having to do that while at the same time implementing a retcon into the larger series MCU universe as a whole is a very, very tricky thing. And that's probably what makes this episode in particular so much more impressive for me. The fact that they were able to do this, right? They were able to deliver such a beautiful episode, a beautiful story for Wanda, and at the same time implement this new idea that technically wasn't part of the MCU as a whole, and basically and not have anyone bat an eye, right? I don't think anyone's going to bring up, and up to this point where I'm recording this video, which is like 2 days after the episodes come out. I have not seen anyone take any issue on that point in particular. If you don't know what I'm referring to, what I mean exactly is the fact that uh, they're establishing the idea that Wanda actually always had an innate magical ability, right? It wasn't the Mind Stone. It wasn't the experimentations that she experienced, that she went through with Hydra, that ended up giving her her powers. She's always had it in her. She's always been a witch. She's always had a small inkling of magical prowess, and that moment where she encounters the Mind Stone only amplifies. It's beautiful, actually. She encounters the Mind Stone, this time being kept in Loki's scepter, his staff, and it comes out. It exposes itself. It even it sheds its skin, right, per se, and reveals itself to be the Mind Stone, the Infinity Stone that it is. And in that moment, Wanda sees a vision as she's there struggling, trying to take on the vast power that is encapsulated in the Infinity Stone. She looks up and she sees this shadowy figure coming down to her. That figure being none other than the Scarlet Witch, kind of representing that she is now coming into her powers, right? She always had this kind of underlying magical abilities that they showed us from the first flashback, where they show her as a little girl. But now at this moment is where it becomes official. It's when she's finally able to fully tap in to that fountain that she has lying deep inside of her, and she and Scarlet Witch are able to become one. Of course, this raises the question of how was Pietro able to get past this experimentation? Did he have some kind of innate magical abilities? But I think at the end of the day, they pretty much came down to, well, he's dead. Who cares? Either way, let's move on, right? Let's focus on Wanda, which I'm perfectly fine with. Being able to implement that idea, that retcon, so seamlessly, so just naturally, without any like cause for uprisal or any kind of like moments where you're kind of like questioning things, man, so impressive. For me, it just makes the episode that much more impressive. It just takes it from an episode, it being an amazing episode, right, delivering a great story for a character, and the fact that they're able to kind of thread this needle and at the same time retcon the story is it just takes it from me from a 10 to an 11. It just goes beyond, right? And it just makes it something truly, truly outstanding. On top of giving us more of a backstory for Wanda and allowing us to create that deeper connection with her in particular, it also gives us more to work with in regards to the main the title of the show itself, Wandavision, right? The relationship between these two characters. I mean, more than this story being focused on Wanda herself, the main focus of the series, of these 8 episodes as a whole, has been that relationship between Wanda and Vision. And this one scene in particular, just takes it to a completely other level, man. Vision comes in. Wanda is just at her, I think it's safe to say she might be at her lowest after having lost her parents, after having lost her humanity in a sense, because I mean, even going through those experimentations when Hydra even though it did give her powers, you have to admit it must have had some kind of psychological effect as far as her not being normal anymore. That must have had some kind of impact on her. And now, after the events of Age of Ultron, her having lost her brother, and you just see it on her face, and man, just thinking about it just gets me kind of worked up because it's just so beautiful. And Elizabeth Olsen is freaking amazing, man, and the way that she's able to portray this, and like just the way that she delivers her lines, and it's beautiful. It really is just beautiful to watch. You see the bond being established between the two, between Wanda and Vision. Her in this moment of vulnerability at her lowest, and Vision just curious, innocent, right? Just innocently providing comfort, support, right, for her, and just that spark being created at that very moment. And it's just the way not only Elizabeth Olsen, Benny himself, like the way he delivers his lines, and man, it's just this scene in particular. And then you have the one line um, that everyone's been raving about. What is grief if not love persevering? Man, man, that just, I swear, man, the writers over there working on this show, working in the MCU in general, they just went all out on this, man. This single line has reverberated and impacted so many people, everyone who's watched this show. It's it's just beautiful. It's, my God, and it just makes you think, and it just makes you, and delivering a line like that in this moment with these two characters, it just helps solidify that relationship between the two of them even more. And it just makes everything that we've seen, right, all of these past 7 episodes, it just makes it that much more real, that much more like you feel for these characters, you feel for that relationship between Wanda and Vision. That's the job of the show, right? It to be able to make this relationship that this show is all about, and make it real for us, make us feel like these are people that we care what is going on to them, right? We care what is happening to them. We care what's being done to them, right? So that when it gets to that moment where they show us that Wanda goes to Sword to retrieve Vision's body, and she has that moment where she realizes that he's no longer there. There's nothing there to even recuperate, right? Thus realizing that, like, that she didn't even need to take him out of there, right? That's it. It was gone. It was done. Realizing that, and then witnessing the moment afterwards when she goes to the home that they would have lived in together to live out the rest of their days had not the events of Infinity War and Endgame taken place. And you see that moment, and you see when Wanda just breaks down and she just falls to her knees weeping, and then it happens, right? That, it's all paid off with everything that they've showed us before. We can't believe that moment. We can't believe this sudden explosion of power coming out of nowhere if it weren't for all of the groundwork laid beforehand, establishing just how strong, just how deep of a relationship there is between these two characters. And this show has pulled that off flawlessly. Because you see this moment and you see Wanda in her pain. And if you've ever had someone that you have cared for deeply in your life or truly loved, having that person ripped away from you, and you can relate, you see that, and you see that sudden explosion, and just everything is let loose, right? And you get it. You get it because of everything that they've showed us beforehand, everything that they've gone through, not only in the show, but in, the previous movies from the MCU. And it's not far-fetched. It's not far-fetched to think that everything, the Hex, everything that we've been seeing up to this moment, it's all her. It's all Wanda. It's been under our nose the entire time. The entire time there have been theories, people thinking, myself included, that it was something else. It was something it was an outside source. It was a villain. It was something evil. It was something, it was Agnes. It was Mephisto. It was whoever it was. And all this time it was her. It was her. And it was done out of a moment of just complete and utter loss and desperation. And man, if you can't get behind that, if that doesn't hit you like right there, I mean, I don't know what to tell you. And suddenly this scene that they showed us 2 episodes ago makes so much more sense. At the time I came up with the theory, which you can check out the episode in the card over here, I'll put it. that displayed the moment in Wanda's life when leading up to the creation of the hex, right? Um, Wanda represented by the child being sad and alone and desperate, and the shark representing whoever this other entity was, coming and presenting her with the power, with the ability to be able to create, lead to the creation of the hex and everything going on in Wandavision. It's funny to think because the one piece that I just wasn't able to make fit into that theory was the name of the product, the name of what the shark was handing the child. And now it suddenly clicks. It suddenly makes sense. Yo magic. Yo magic. Yo magic. Your magic. Wanda's magic. Wanda's power. All of this is Wanda. This is her. She is the cause of all this. She created the hex. She created everything that's going on inside. It's all her. I truly think we're going to look back once the series is done. We're going to be able to look back and look at this episode. And this episode is really what's going to catapult this show and take it to the next level. It was good. It was a good show up until now. But after that last episode, this show is something else. It really is. It transcends that now. It's not just good. It's truly a work of art. It's amazing. All right, that's enough of me gushing about the show. It's I want to just touch on a few because this, like I mentioned, this episode did pretty much give us a lot of context as far as everything that we've seen up to this moment. So a lot of theories have been proven and disproven. I've already mentioned the origin of the hex, the creation of the hex the whole time, people wondering whether it was Agatha, whether it was Mephisto. And it was, of course, we found out that it was Wanda. It was her all along. The commercial, as I just explained, giving the breakdown of that. Looking at some of the promo stuff, they showed us images of Wanda at that moment when she is going through the Hydra experimentations. I had taken these images to think that it was like Wanda captured and enclosed somewhere, and that somehow everything regarding the hex and WandaVision, it was all some kind of like inside of her head kind of situation thing. But of course, that has now been disproven, so I was wrong about that. But one of the things that I did get partially right was the reasoning behind WandaVision and everything going inside of the hex being based around sitcoms. My theory, and I think I'd mentioned this probably, if not the first video, the second video, was that everything was based around sitcoms because during the time after Ultron, while she was being accustomed to life in America, she saw a lot of these sitcoms, right? So they kind of just left a lasting impression. So we do see that it is partially that, right? Because the scene that we see that Wanda and Vision share, and she's at the Avengers facility and she's watching Malcolm in the Middle, but it actually goes a lot deeper than that. In the one scene where we see that she's a little girl and we see her sharing the moment with her parents before the tragic events that transpire that day, we see that it's the sitcoms actually are a lot deeper. They establish it's something that creates a connection, not just to that moment after Age of Ultron, but it harkens all the way back to her childhood, and it creates this kind of link to her parents being lost and the tragedies that she's faced from that moment on. So I was glad to get that one partially right. Not all the way, but I mean, who could have expected that? Who could have expected that as a little girl she saw like those sitcoms? But so I think I'll take that as a W. Screw it. Yeah, that's mainly where I want to leave this at. Of course, there was that, they gave us the kind of like the origin to Agatha and where she came from, which is okay, cool, fine. She's an evil witch, which we needed. I won't say like it's. I just don't want to. I don't want to blow it off. Of course, we definitely needed that, right? If that wasn't there, I would be kind of scratching my head as to like, what about Agatha? So I'm glad that it's there, but it's just that this episode was so much more than that, right? If we take this episode at its core for like what it was meant to do, what the purpose of the episode was, It was, people are not going to remember it for it being the Agatha origin story. People are going to remember it for it being the moment where the Scarlet Witch was born. And we got White Vision at the end also, but it's like, whatever. I mean, I don't know. I guess he'll fight against regular Vision. Whatever. They showed us. We can't make anything out of that, man. It's 2 seconds. Let's see what happens. There's only one episode left. God, I don't know. Whatever. I mean, this is it. We're at the end. This is the next to last episode. Next week is the last episode. It's no longer a time for theories. Theories were the beginning episodes. Now we're finally getting answers, and the impact comes in how those answers are provided. And man, oh man, with today's episode, oof, yeah, they're definitely going about it the right way. So those are my thoughts on episode 8 of WandaVision. As always, please leave a comment. Let me know what you thought. And again, yeah, let me know what you think is going to happen next week in the grand finale. I'm super excited. I'm super pumped. And I can't wait. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate it. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Be easy.